The soft glow of golden lights filled the hall of the company's annual Christmas party. Music drifted across the decorated space, laughter echoed, and people moved around with drinks in hand. It was the night everyone waited for at the end of the year, a night when stress was forgotten, work was left behind, and even the quiet ones in the office felt free. Among the crowd stood Marcus, a tall, broad-shouldered man with kind brown eyes and skin as deep as coffee. He worked in the company's logistics department. Marcus was known for his quiet discipline and hard-working nature. Most of his colleagues respected him, though few knew much about his personal life. Marcus didn't talk about himself often, but everyone knew one thing: he was a single father. At a corner table, Marcus checked his phone. A picture of a little girl with curly hair and the brightest smile flashed on the screen. Lena, his 6-year-old daughter, was everything to him. She was the reason he woke up early, worked long hours, and pushed himself even when he was exhausted. Tonight, Lena was staying with Marcus's neighbor, Mrs. Green, who often helped when he had late shifts. Knowing his daughter was safe, Marcus allowed himself to attend the party. Across the hall, his boss, Clara, was at the center of attention. Clara had always been the kind of woman who lit up a room without even trying. She was in her mid-30s, with light skin, long straight hair, and a smile that seemed warm but sometimes distant. As the head of the department, Clara carried herself with strength and confidence, but tonight, she wasn't the composed leader her employees usually saw. She laughed louder than usual, her cheeks flushed from the wine in her glass. A group of co-workers surrounded her, all trying to impress or share a joke. Clara was admired not only for her professional skills but also for her charm. Yet beneath the surface of her laughter, there was a loneliness she kept hidden. Marcus noticed her from afar. He wasn't the type to judge, but seeing his boss drink glass after glass made him uneasy. Something about her eyes told him she was trying to forget something. As the night moved on, music grew louder and people began leaving in groups, catching cabs or rides. Marcus helped stack a few chairs near the back, as he often did. He wasn't just an employee, he was someone who believed in leaving things better than he found them. When most people had left, Clara remained, sitting at the edge of the table, looking at her empty glass. She tried standing up, but her steps were unsteady. Marcus noticed right away. "Miss Clara," he said gently, stepping closer. "Do you need help?" Clara turned to him, her eyes hazy but still carrying that spark of dignity. "Marcus," she said with a half smile. "I'm fine. I can call a cab." Marcus hesitated. "It's late, and it's snowing outside. A cab might take too long. Let me drive you home." She waved her hand, stubborn. "I don't want to trouble you. You should be with your daughter tonight." Marcus shook his head. "Lena's fine. She's with Mrs. Green. You're not a trouble, ma'am. It's safer this way." Clara looked at him for a moment, as if trying to decide whether she should trust him. Marcus wasn't just her employee, he was the quiet man who always finished his work on time, the one who never complained, the one everyone could rely on. Slowly, she nodded. "All right," she whispered. Marcus guided her carefully through the hall, his hand steady but respectful, never crossing any boundary. The cold December wind brushed against their faces as they stepped outside. Snowflakes danced under the streetlights, covering the cars in a white blanket. He opened the passenger door of his old but clean car, helping her in. She leaned back against the seat, her eyes half closed. The drive was quiet at first. Clara rested her head against the window, watching the snow blur past. Marcus kept his eyes on the road, his hands steady on the wheel. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, it was soft, almost peaceful. After a while, Clara spoke, her voice low. "You're a good man, Marcus. Not many would stay behind for someone like me." Marcus glanced at her briefly. It's not about who you are, ma'am. It's about what's right. Her lips curved into a faint smile. You're different. They reached her apartment building, a tall structure with glowing windows. Marcus parked the car and stepped out to open the door for her. Clara stumbled slightly, and he steadied her with a gentle hand. As they stood in the falling snow, for a brief second their eyes met. Something unspoken passed between them, not romance yet, not love, but a small seed of connection. Clara lowered her gaze, embarrassed. Thank you, Marcus, she whispered. For not letting me be alone tonight. He nodded simply. Get some rest, ma'am. She gave him a look, softer this time, and disappeared inside. Marcus walked back to his car, brushing snow from the windshield. He thought about her words, about the loneliness in her eyes. He didn't know it yet, but this small act of kindness on a cold winter night was the beginning of something neither of them expected. The Christmas party was over, but a different story had just begun. The next morning, Clara woke up to the faint sound of church bells outside her window. The winter sunlight slipped through the curtains, painting soft patterns across the floor. Her head ached slightly from the wine, and for a moment, she struggled to remember how she got home. Then it came back to her, the quiet ride through the snowy streets, the steady hands on the steering wheel, and Marcus's calm voice telling her to get some rest. Clara sat up slowly, her heart unexpectedly warmed by the memory. She had always prided herself on being strong, independent, and untouchable, but last night reminded her she wasn't as unshakable as people thought. She made herself a cup of tea and sat by the window. From her apartment, she could see families walking together in the snow, children laughing as they carried their sleds. A small smile touched her lips, but it faded quickly. Clara had no family nearby. She lived alone, and though her life seemed perfect on the outside, there were evenings when loneliness pressed heavily on her heart. Marcus's face flashed in her mind again. He had been so gentle, so respectful. Unlike others at the party who only cared about fun, Marcus had noticed her struggle and stepped in quietly, without expecting anything in return. That thought stayed with her longer than she expected. Back at his small apartment across town, Marcus was also starting his day. The smell of pancakes filled the kitchen as little Lena sat at the table, her curly hair tied up in two playful buns. "Daddy, why are you smiling?" she asked, swinging her legs. Marcus chuckled, flipping a pancake onto her plate. "Am I smiling?" "Yes," Lena said with certainty, her big brown eyes watching him carefully. "You look happy." He shook his head. "I'm just glad to have the morning with you." But deep down, Marcus knew his daughter was right. He was smiling, more than usual. Driving Clara home last night had left him with an odd sense of peace, like he had done something that mattered. Not just because she was his boss, but because she was a person who needed someone to care. As Lena poured syrup on her pancakes, Marcus thought about how different Clara's world was from his. She lived in a nice apartment, worked in a high position, and probably had more money than he could imagine. Meanwhile, he lived paycheck to paycheck, doing his best to raise Lena on his own. Their lives had nothing in common, and yet, for one quiet night, they had shared something real. When Monday arrived, the office buzzed again with its usual rhythm. Phones rang, printers whirred, and keyboards clicked. Marcus arrived early, as always, dressed neatly in a simple shirt and tie. He liked blending in, doing his work without drawing much attention. But that morning, Clara's eyes found him almost immediately when she entered the office. She was dressed in a navy blue coat, her hair neatly brushed, but there was something softer in her expression. She walked straight to her office but paused briefly as she passed Marcus's desk. "Good morning, Marcus," she said gently. He looked up, surprised. Normally, she gave him a polite nod at best, but today her tone was different, warm, almost personal. "Good morning, ma'am," he replied. She hesitated for a second before walking away, as if she wanted to say more but wasn't sure how. Throughout the day, Clara found herself distracted. In meetings, while discussing reports and deadlines, her mind kept drifting back to Friday night. She remembered the snow on his shoulders, the steady way he had guided her to the car, the respect in his voice. No one had treated her like that in a long time, not as a boss, not as a woman, just as a person. At lunchtime, she spotted Marcus in the cafeteria, sitting with a few co-workers but speaking little, as usual. She thought about walking over but stopped herself. What would people think if they saw her talking too casually with him? The office had its gossip, and she had worked hard to build her reputation. Still, the thought of ignoring him felt wrong. By the end of the day, she made a decision. As Marcus packed up his bag to leave, Clara stepped out of her office. "Marcus," she called softly. He turned, slightly startled. "Yes, ma'am. Could I speak to you for a moment?" They stood near the window where the evening sky glowed in shades of pink and gray. Clara folded her arms, almost nervously. "I wanted to thank you again for Friday night," she said. "I don't usually. I mean, I don't like depending on anyone. But you were kind. I won't forget it." Marcus gave a small nod. "You don't need to thank me, ma'am. I just did what anyone should do." "Not everyone would have," she replied softly, meeting his eyes. For a moment, the air between them grew still. Clara felt something unfamiliar comfort. She wasn't used to letting her guard down, but with Marcus, it didn't feel risky. It felt natural. Finally, she smiled faintly. "Good night, Marcus." "Good night, ma'am." As Marcus walked out into the cold evening, he felt the same strange warmth he had felt on Friday. Clara's words replayed in his mind. She hadn't spoken like a boss, she had spoken like someone who wanted to be seen. And for the first time in a long while, Marcus wondered if life had something more in store for him than just survival. The weeks after the Christmas party moved quickly. Snow still covered the city, and the air was filled with the soft glow of holiday decorations. At the office, work returned to its normal rhythm, but something subtle had changed between Clara and Marcus. Whenever she passed him in the hall, her voice softened. Whenever he spoke in meetings, she paid closer attention. These were small things no one else noticed, but for both of them, they carried quiet meaning. Marcus, however, stayed cautious. He knew the distance between their lives: boss and employee, wealthy woman and single father. He didn't let his thoughts wander too far. His world was simple: work, home, and his daughter Lena. That was enough. Or at least, it used to be. One Saturday afternoon, Marcus took Lena to the grocery store. She skipped happily beside him, her little boots crunching against the icy pavement. "Daddy, can we get hot chocolate?" she asked, tugging at his coat. Marcus smiled. "Only if you promise to help me carry the bags." She giggled, nodding eagerly. Inside the store, they moved through the aisles, picking up bread, milk, and some fruit. Lena loved helping, tossing items into the basket with exaggerated seriousness. Marcus couldn't help but laugh at her determination. As they turned into the cereal aisle, Marcus froze. Just a few feet away stood Clara, wearing a long beige coat and holding a shopping basket. Her hair was pulled back simply, and she looked different outside the office: more relaxed, more human. Clara spotted him at the same time. Her eyes widened slightly, and then a warm smile spread across her face. "Marcus," she said softly. "Ma'am," he replied, a little awkwardly. Before Clara could say more, Lena peeked from behind her father's leg, her big brown eyes curious. Clara's smile softened even more. "And who is this beautiful young lady?" Marcus rested a hand gently on his daughter's shoulder. "This is Lena, my daughter." Lena tilted her head shyly. Hello. Hello, Lena, Clara said kindly, crouching slightly to meet her eyes. That's a lovely name. Lena blushed and quickly hid behind Marcus again, making him chuckle. She gets shy around new people, Marcus explained. Clara nodded, her eyes warm. That's all right. I used to be shy too. They stood there for a moment, surrounded by shelves of cereal, as though the rest of the world had faded away. It wasn't planned, it wasn't formal, it was just life, crossing paths in the most ordinary of places. A little later, as they waited at the checkout, Clara ended up behind Marcus and Lena in line. Lena placed her chocolate drink mix proudly on the counter, and Clara laughed softly. Hot chocolate on a snowy day. That's the best idea I've heard all week. Lena beamed at her, feeling a little braver now. Do you like marshmallows in yours? Clara's eyes sparkled. Always. Marcus glanced between them, surprised at how naturally they connected. Clara didn't have children of her own, at least, none Marcus knew of, yet the gentleness in her voice when she spoke to Lena felt genuine. Outside, the cold wind blew as Marcus carried the grocery bags. Clara walked beside them, holding her own smaller bag. Do you live nearby? She asked. Not far, Marcus replied. About 10 minutes from here. Clara hesitated before saying, it's nice, seeing you outside of work. You seem different. More at ease. Marcus gave a small laugh. That's because I'm just a dad here. At work, I'm the guy who files reports and drives the company truck. You're more than that, Clara said quietly. He looked at her, surprised by the sincerity in her tone. But before he could respond, Lena tugged his sleeve. Daddy, can we go home and make hot chocolate now? Of course, baby girl, he said, smiling down at her. Clara smiled too, her gaze lingering on the little girl's joy. Well, I won't keep you. Thank you for letting me meet Lena. Marcus gave a respectful nod. Good evening, ma'am. But as Clara turned to leave, Lena suddenly called out, Bye, Clara. Both adults froze. Marcus blinked in surprise, while Clara's eyes widened. Slowly, a soft laugh escaped her lips. Goodbye, Lena, she said warmly, waving. That night, after Lena went to bed, Marcus sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea. He thought about the way Clara had knelt to speak to his daughter, the kindness in her eyes, the laughter in her voice. It stirred something in him he hadn't felt in a long time. He had always kept his world small, protecting Lena and himself from disappointment. But maybe, just maybe, life was trying to expand his world in ways he hadn't imagined. On the other side of town, Clara sat in her quiet apartment, staring at the untouched groceries on her counter. Her heart felt strangely full. Meeting Lena had left an impression on her, one she couldn't quite explain. For the first time in years, she didn't feel entirely alone. And without either of them realizing it, the simple moment at the grocery store had planted the seed of something that would soon grow deeper, a connection not just between a man and a woman, but between three hearts. Winter days rolled into the new year, and the snow outside slowly began to soften under the pale January sun. Life at the office carried on as usual, meetings, reports, and deadlines, but beneath the surface, Clara and Marcus's connection quietly grew. Their conversations were still polite, still careful, but there was a softness now. A shared understanding. Clara often thought of Lena after that grocery store meeting. The little girl's shy smile and innocent question about marshmallows had stayed with her. She found herself wondering what it would be like to spend more time around them, to see Marcus not just as her employee, but as the father she had glimpsed in those small, tender moments. One Friday afternoon, the office buzzed with relief as the work week ended. Clara stepped out of her office to find Marcus gathering his papers. On impulse, she walked over. Marcus, she began softly, Do you and Lena have any plans this weekend? He looked up, surprised. Nothing special. Just the usual grocery shopping, maybe a trip to the park if the weather holds. Clara hesitated for a moment, then smiled. I was wondering, would it be alright if I stopped by? I'd like to bring something for Lena. Only if you're comfortable, of course. Marcus studied her carefully. His first instinct was to protect his daughter's small, simple world. But the memory of Lena's bright bye, Clara, came back to him, and he knew his daughter had felt something genuine. Slowly, he nodded. All right. But don't bring anything big. She's just a kid, she'll be happy even with a coloring book. Clara laughed softly. Noted. The next day, Clara stood outside Marcus's modest apartment building, holding a small bag in her hand. She had chosen something simple, a puzzle with colorful animals, something a 6-year-old might enjoy. Her heart beat a little faster than usual. She was used to boardrooms, investors, and presentations, but this was different. This was stepping into someone's personal world. Marcus opened the door, wearing a casual sweater. His home was small but neat, filled with warmth that came not from expensive furniture but from the life inside it. The scent of pancakes lingered in the air, and toys were neatly stacked in a corner. Come in, he said gently. Clara stepped inside, glancing around. The walls held framed drawings, clearly Lena's artwork, flowers in bright colors, stick figures holding hands, rainbows stretching across pages. It made Clara smile instantly. Then Lena appeared from her room, holding a stuffed bear. Her eyes widened when she saw Clara. Hi, Clara, she said shyly. Hi, sweetheart, Clara replied warmly, kneeling slightly. I brought you something. She handed over the puzzle bag. Lena's face lit up. Thank you. She hugged the bag as if it were a treasure, and then hurried to the table to open it. Marcus watched quietly, his expression unreadable, though his eyes softened at the sight of his daughter's excitement. Would you like some tea? He asked. That would be lovely, Clara said. They sat at the small kitchen table while Lena spread the puzzle pieces across the floor nearby. The soft clinking of mugs filled the silence for a moment. Clara looked around the room, noticing how carefully Marcus kept everything, even with the child in the house. You've made a warm home, she said sincerely. Marcus gave a small shrug. It's not much. But it's enough for us. It's more than enough, Clara replied gently. There was a pause, and then Marcus leaned back slightly. Why did you want to come today, Clara? The question was honest, not unkind. Clara set her mug down and took a breath. Because I didn't want our connection to stop at the office, she admitted. Meeting Lena at the store reminded me of what matters. I spend so much time working, trying to prove myself, that I forget what it feels like to just sit and enjoy a simple moment. You and Lena, you reminded me. Marcus studied her face carefully. He wasn't used to hearing his boss speak so openly, so vulnerably. But he could tell her words were real. Before he could respond, Lena ran over, holding 2 puzzle pieces. Clara, can you help me? I can't find where this one goes. Clara smiled, kneeling beside her. Let's figure it out together. For the next half hour, the 3 of them sat on the floor, fitting colorful pieces into place. Lena giggled every time a piece matched, and Clara laughed with her, her eyes shining in a way Marcus hadn't seen before. Watching them, Marcus felt something stir deep inside, a mixture of hope and fear. He had built walls around his heart to protect Lena and himself, but Clara's presence was slowly finding cracks in those walls. When the puzzle was finally complete, Lena clapped her hands. We did it? Yes, we did, Clara said, giving her a high five. The little girl yawned then, rubbing her eyes. Marcus smiled. Time for a nap, young lady. Lena groaned but didn't argue. She hugged Clara quickly before running to her room. Clara blinked in surprise at the sudden hug, her heart swelling. She looked at Marcus, almost shyly. "She's a sweet child," she whispered. "She's my whole world," Marcus replied softly. For a long moment, they sat in silence, the weight of those words settling between them. Finally, Clara stood. "Thank you for letting me visit. It means more to me than you know." Marcus nodded. "Thank you for being kind to her. That's all that matters to me." As Clara stepped out into the crisp winter air, she felt something she hadn't felt in years: belonging. And Marcus, watching her leave, felt both fear and hope rising inside him. Neither of them said it yet, but both knew something had begun to change. The days grew colder, and the sidewalks sparkled with thin sheets of ice. Winter seemed endless, but inside Marcus's home, warmth had begun to bloom. Clara's visit had left behind more than just a completed puzzle, it had opened a door. Since that afternoon, Clara found reasons to stop by every now and then. Sometimes she brought cookies, sometimes books for Lena, and sometimes nothing at all, just her presence. Each time, Lena welcomed her with joy, and Marcus, though still cautious, found himself slowly allowing her into their world. Yet Marcus's heart wasn't quick to trust. Life had taught him hard lessons. He had once believed in promises that were broken, in love that had left him standing alone with a baby in his arms. He couldn't afford to let Lena be hurt by anyone who might walk away. Clara, however, seemed different. She wasn't just polite to Lena, she listened, she laughed, she cared. Still, Marcus wondered, would she remain if life became messy, or was she only here for the soft, easy moments? That question was answered one stormy evening. Marcus had worked a long shift, and by the time he picked Lena up from school, snow was falling heavily. The wind bit at their faces as they hurried inside the apartment. But as soon as Lena took off her coat, Marcus noticed her cheeks were unusually pale, and her little body shivered. "Daddy, I'm cold," she whispered, her voice weak. Marcus pressed his hand to her forehead and felt the heat immediately. Worry tightened his chest. Lena rarely fell ill, but when she did, it came fast. "All right, baby girl," he said softly, carrying her to the couch. "You'll be okay. I'll make some soup." But as the evening wore on, Lena's fever climbed higher. She refused food, her small hands clutched his shirt, and her breathing grew heavy. Marcus sat beside her, his heart racing with helplessness. He had medicine, but it didn't seem enough. He needed advice, maybe even a doctor, but the snowstorm outside had blocked the roads. At that moment, his phone buzzed. Clara's name appeared on the screen. He hesitated before answering. "Hello." "Marcus," Clara's voice came, gentle but firm. "I was just checking in. The storm is bad. Are you and Lena all right?" For a moment, Marcus wanted to say yes, to keep his struggle private. But one look at his daughter's flushed face broke his pride. "She's sick," he admitted quietly. "High fever. I'm worried." There was no pause on Clara's end. "I'm coming." "You don't have to." "I'm coming," she repeated firmly. "Text me your address." Marcus's heart pounded as he sent it. Part of him felt guilty. He didn't want to drag anyone into his problems. Yet another part of him felt a strange relief, knowing someone cared enough to rush through a storm for them. An hour later, a knock sounded at the door. Marcus opened it to find Clara, her coat dusted with snow, her hair damp from the wind. In her arms she carried a small bag. "Where is she?" Clara asked without greeting. "On the couch," Marcus said softly. Clara walked in quickly, kneeling beside Lena. Her voice turned gentle as she touched the girl's hand. "Hi, sweetheart. I brought something for you." From the bag, She pulled out children's fever medicine, a thermometer, and even a small stuffed bunny. Marcus stared in quiet surprise. She had thought of everything. For the next few hours, Clara stayed by Lena's side. She helped Marcus cool the fever with damp cloths, coaxed the girl into taking small sips of water, and whispered comforting words that only a child's heart could fully hear. At one point, as Marcus watched Clara carefully adjust the blanket over Lena, he felt something stir deep inside. This wasn't kindness for show. This wasn't duty. This was care, the kind that came from the heart. "Why are you doing this?" he asked quietly, almost afraid of the answer. Clara looked up at him, her eyes steady. "Because she matters to you. And if she matters to you, she matters to me." The words struck him harder than he expected. For years, he had carried everything alone, believing no one else would share his burdens. Yet here was Clara, sitting on the floor of his modest apartment, giving her heart to his daughter without hesitation. By midnight, Lena's fever finally began to ease. Her cheeks lost some of their flush, and her breathing grew steadier. She drifted into sleep, clutching the stuffed bunny Clara had given her. Marcus exhaled deeply, his shoulders heavy with relief. "Thank you," he whispered. "I don't know what I would have done without you tonight." Clara smiled softly, exhaustion in her eyes but warmth in her voice. "You don't have to do everything alone, Marcus. Sometimes, it's okay to let someone stand beside you." He looked at her for a long moment, the weight of her words sinking deep. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to believe them. When Clara finally left that night, snow still falling gently outside, Marcus stood at the window long after she was gone. His heart was full of gratitude, but also something else, something he hadn't dared to feel in a long time. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about hope. Winter slowly loosened its grip on the city. Snow began to melt into streams along the sidewalks, and the first hints of spring air slipped through the cold winds. For Marcus, however, change wasn't just in the weather, it was happening in his heart. Ever since that stormy night when Clara rushed to help Lena, something between them had shifted. It was no longer just kindness or polite friendship. Marcus found himself looking forward to her visits, her calls, even the way her laughter filled his small kitchen. Clara, too, noticed the change. She had lived years in quiet isolation, filling her life with work and achievements. But now, when she left the office at night, she often thought less about reports and more about Marcus and Lena. It was strange, unfamiliar, yet beautiful, like discovering a new part of herself. Still, both carried doubts. Marcus wondered if Clara truly belonged in his simple world, far from the polished halls of her apartment and her office. And Clara feared that Marcus might see her as someone who could never fit into the rhythm of his life. But despite those fears, they kept moving closer, step by step. One Saturday, Clara invited Marcus and Lena to the park near her apartment. The sun was gentle, the ground still sprinkled with patches of melting snow. Children laughed on the swings, and families enjoyed the rare warmth after months of cold. Lena ran ahead, her curls bouncing as she rushed toward the slide. Clara followed with a smile, carrying a small picnic basket. "You didn't have to bring all this," Marcus said, walking beside her. "I wanted to," she replied. "You've cooked for me before. Those pancakes were unforgettable. It's only fair I return the favor." Marcus chuckled softly. "I'll admit, Lena was very impressed by you after that puzzle day. She kept asking when Miss Clara would visit again." Clara's eyes softened. "She's a wonderful girl. You've done so well with her, Marcus." The sincerity in her tone made his chest tighten. He had heard praise for his work, his discipline, his skills, but hearing someone acknowledge his role as a father felt different. It touched the part of him that worked hardest, loved deepest. They spread a blanket on the grass while Lena played nearby. Clara unpacked sandwiches, fruit, and a thermos of hot tea. For the first time, it felt less like a boss and her employees sharing time, and more like a family. Later that afternoon, Lena ran up to them, breathless with excitement. "Daddy, Clara, look. I made a new friend." She pointed toward a little girl waving from the swings. Marcus smiled. "That's great, sweetheart. Go play." As Lena skipped away, Clara turned to Marcus. "She's so full of life. Do you ever worry about her asking where her mother is?" Marcus's smile faded slightly, his eyes lowering. "She's asked before. I tell her the truth in simple words, that her mother loved her but couldn't stay. I don't speak badly, but I don't hide it either. Lena deserves honesty." Clara nodded, touched by his quiet strength. "It can't be easy." "No," he admitted. "But she gives me more joy than pain ever could. She's my reason." Clara's gaze lingered on him, admiration in her eyes. In that moment, she saw not just a hard-working man, but someone deeply loyal, deeply human. And something inside her whispered that she wanted to be part of that reason, too. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in soft oranges, they packed up the picnic. Clara carried the basket while Marcus took Lena's small hand. Walking side by side through the park, their shoulders brushed lightly. Neither pulled away. At Marcus's apartment later that evening, Clara stayed a little longer than usual. She helped Lena with her bedtime story, her voice calm and gentle as she read about brave animals in the forest. Lena fell asleep halfway through, clutching her stuffed bunny. When Clara closed the book, she noticed Marcus watching her. His expression was unreadable, yet filled with something she couldn't quite name. "You're good with her," he said quietly. Clara smiled faintly. "I don't know about that. I've never been around children much. But with Lena, it feels natural." Marcus nodded slowly. "That means something." For a long moment, silence filled the room, broken only by Lena's soft breathing. Clara felt her heartbeat quicken. This was no longer just about friendship, no longer about duty. There was something unspoken between them, fragile yet undeniable. Finally, Clara stood, smoothing her coat. "I should go. It's late." Marcus walked her to the door. As she reached for the handle, she paused, turning back. "Marcus, thank you for trusting me with your world." He met her eyes, his voice steady but soft. "It's not easy for me to trust. But you've earned it." Clara's breath caught. For a moment, it felt as if the world held still. Then she gave him a small smile and stepped into the night. That evening, Marcus sat at the table, staring at the puzzle still resting on the shelf, the one they had built together. Slowly, a realization settled in his heart. Clara wasn't just passing through his life. She was becoming part of it. And for the first time in years, Marcus wasn't afraid of that thought. Spring arrived gently, soft and bright, melting the last remnants of winter snow. The world outside Marcus's small neighborhood seemed to come alive, but inside, something even more vibrant was growing, his life with Clara and Lena. The bond between them had strengthened quietly over the past months. Clara was no longer just a visitor or a guest, she was part of their routines. She helped Lena with homework, baked cookies with her on lazy afternoons, and even joined Marcus on weekend trips to the park. Each shared laugh, each simple moment, made Marcus's heart lighter, yet he remained careful. He had learned to protect his heart, and his daughters. Clara, too, had changed. She felt alive in a way she hadn't in years. Her career was important, but no promotion, no award, could give her the sense of belonging she now felt when Marcus and Lena laughed around her kitchen or held her hand on chilly walks. Yet she knew Marcus carried caution in his eyes, a wall built from years of life's challenges. She didn't want to force it down, she wanted him to lower it himself. One Saturday morning, Marcus planned a small surprise. Lena had been talking about a picnic for days, and he thought it would be the perfect day for one. He invited Clara without telling her the details, only that it was for her and Lena. The three of them set off to a nearby lake, the sun shining brightly and reflecting on the calm water. Lena skipped ahead, collecting flowers and laughing at the ducks swimming by. Marcus and Clara walked slowly behind her, their steps in quiet rhythm. "You planned all this?" Clara asked, smiling. Marcus nodded. "I thought Lena would enjoy it. And I thought you might too." Clara studied him, noticing the small nervous edge in his voice. It was different from the confident boss she usually saw in the office. Here, he was simply Marcus, the man who loved his daughter fiercely, the man who cared quietly and deeply. "This is perfect," she said softly. They spread a blanket under a blooming tree, and Lena immediately began organizing the picnic. She offered sandwiches, fruit, and lemonade to both adults, carefully watching their reactions. Clara laughed at her meticulous ways. "You're a wonderful little helper," Clara said. Lena beamed, and Marcus felt a warmth bloom in his chest. Watching Clara interact with his daughter so naturally, he realized how much he wanted her in their life, not just as a friend, but as someone permanent. After lunch, Lena wandered off to the water's edge while Marcus and Clara remained seated. The soft breeze rustled the leaves, and for a moment, neither spoke. Finally, Marcus broke the silence. "Clara, there's something I've been meaning to say." Clara looked at him, her eyes encouraging, patient. "I've built walls around myself for a long time," he admitted. "Not just for me, for Lena. I didn't want anyone to come in and hurt us. But you've changed that. Slowly, quietly. And I trust you. More than I've trusted anyone in years." Clara's chest tightened. She had waited for this moment, yet hearing it spoken aloud made her heart race. "Marcus," she said softly, "I've wanted this too. I've wanted to be part of your life, to be here for both of you. Not just when it's easy, but always. I care, deeply." The honesty in her voice made Marcus's heart swell. He reached out, taking her hand gently in his. Their fingers intertwined naturally, as if they were always meant to fit together. For a long moment, they simply sat there, holding hands, the world around them fading into the soft sounds of nature and Lena's laughter. Later, Lena ran back to them, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers she had picked. "For you, Clara," she exclaimed, thrusting them into Clara's hands. Clara knelt, accepting the flowers with a smile. "Thank you, Lena. They're beautiful." Marcus watched the two of them, feeling a quiet joy he hadn't known he could feel. His daughter had accepted Clara so easily, and Clara had embraced his daughter with warmth and love. The thought of their life together didn't scare him anymore, it excited him. That evening, as they walked home, Lena skipped ahead while Marcus and Clara stayed close behind. Their hands brushed again, this time deliberately, comfortably. Marcus realized that he didn't want this connection to end. Not now, not ever. At the door of his apartment, Clara turned to him. "Marcus, I know life isn't always simple. But I want to be with you. With both of you. Will you let me?" Marcus smiled, the last of his walls falling away. "Yes, Clara. I want that too. More than anything." They stood there for a moment, hands held, hearts open, ready to begin a new chapter together. And in that instant, the world felt right, two hearts and one little girl, united by trust, kindness, and love. As Lena waved goodbye for the night and ran off to her room, Marcus and Clara shared a quiet smile, knowing that the bond they had built would only grow stronger. It was more than love. It was home. And for Marcus, Clara, and Lena, it was the beginning of a beautiful life together.